Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our government's priority is jobs, growth and long-term prosperity. And that is why Canadians elected a strong, stable, Conservative majority government. Canadians understood that the economic leadership of the Prime Minister was key to navigating the difficult economic times we faced. That trust paid off, and we have seen the creation of over 900,000 net new jobs. Most are full-time jobs in the private sector, with over two-thirds being in high-wage industries. This reflects the strength of Canada's economy amidst global economic uncertainty. As good as these results are, however, our focus is still on getting Canadians back to work. While there are currently thousands of jobs across Canada going unfulfilled, there are still too many Canadians looking for work. We are confronted with mismatches between the existing skills of the local labour force in some regions and the skills that are required by employers for new jobs. This is leading to shortages in some occupations that are key to our competitiveness and continued economic growth. As a member of the Human Resources Committee, I have heard many employer and employee groups appear before the committee to discuss how we can address this growing skills gap. And I have also heard this from employers and employees in the great riding of Mississauga-Streetsville. Our committee has travelled across Canada to gather testimony. We focused on apprentices, persons with disabilities, and those in rural and remote parts of the country. In every one of these studies, in every corner of the country, we have heard of the growing skills mismatch and how this is a pressing issue facing our economy. Canada's Economic Action Plan 2013 details the government's strategy to connect Canadians with these jobs. Through our EAP, we will equip Canadians with the skills and training they need to be hired in these quality, well-paying jobs. We announced, as an example, the creation of the Canada Jobs Grant, which could provide $15,000 or more per person. This grant will shift the planning and delivery of training from government to job creators. This will directly connect Canadians who are unemployed or those looking to advance within their workplace with a job that is currently going unfulfilled. We are creating opportunities for apprentices by making it easier for them to get the experience they need to get to journey person status. We are also providing funding for 5,000 more internships for those who have recently graduated college or university. And we are providing unprecedented support to groups that have faced barriers in the past to full labour market participation, including persons with disabilities, youth, Aboriginal peoples and newcomers, so that they too can find meaningful work. I mention these examples because I believe there is a misperception as to the intentions of the government when it comes to this program. Our government is doing everything in our power to ensure Canadians have the first crack at available jobs. We are investing in the skills of Canadians in unprecedented ways to ensure they have the qualifications to find better paying employment. Employers need to prove there are no Canadians available to fill a job before they can turn to foreign workers through the Temporary Foreign Workers Program. In areas of absolute and acute labour shortages, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program exists to help businesses get short-term workers to grow their businesses. I know the opposition members appreciate the need for this program. And how do I know that, Mr. Speaker? Well, at least 8 NDP MPs lobbied for more TFWs in their ridings, and at least 5 Liberal MPs have done the same. While we can all agree that temporary foreign workers should not displace Canadian workers, it is a little hypocritical to have the opposition members across the way vilify a program in public that in private they are demanding more from. On one hand, you have the member for Cape Breton Canso.
Order. The honourable member from Halifax rising on a point of order.
The member used as in his remarks, it was tried here earlier, by listing that 8 NDP members and 4 Liberal members have written letters on this issue. Where does that information come from, Mr. Speaker? Is it the spy machine of the Conservative? There's no place for that kind of tactics in here.
Order. The matter raised by the member from Halifax is a matter of debate as opposed to a point of order. Resuming debate, the honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, for a member who's been here a long, long time, you'd think he'd know the difference between a point of privilege and a point of order. Anyway, the member for Cape Breton Canso was quoted as saying, temporary foreign workers are an important part of our economy, and some of the best workers are temporary foreign workers, end quote. On the other hand, you have the exact same member saying, and I quote, the temporary foreign worker program has been consistently abused as a vehicle to replace Canadian workers with foreign workers, end quote. So which is it? Are TFWs an important part of our economy and some of the best workers, or is the program abused and a vehicle to replace Canadian workers with foreign workers? Those of us on this side of the House believe that Canadians must always have the first opportunity at available jobs. It has never been the intent of the program to exist as an alternative to hiring Canadians. Budget 2013 committed the government to fixing some of the problems that are in the program. We have committed to doing such things as increasing recruiting efforts, as well as the length and reach of advertising. We will also work with employers when there are no qualified Canadians to develop a plan to transition Canadian workers over time. And we will restrict the language requirements for temporary foreign workers to official languages only. So let me be clear. Hiring temporary foreign workers does not mean creating a pool of second-class labor. Employers cannot exploit or neglect their temporary foreign workers. They have to follow the rules, provide a safe work environment, and ensure their well-being. If not, they will find themselves banned from the temporary foreign worker program. These workers have the same rights and protections as all Canadian workers under applicable federal and provincial employment standards and laws. Foreign workers are registered with the Workers' Compensation Board, and they also receive private or public health care coverage as any Canadian would receive. Mr. Speaker, a further reflection of our commitment to fairness and equity in the program is the fact that foreign workers must be paid the same wage as a Canadian worker for doing the same work they do for an employer. And let me be clear on this point. As union leadership and opposition MPs have been intentionally misleading on this point, temporary foreign workers cannot be paid less than a Canadian. Employers must provide documentation to demonstrate that the wage being paid to a temporary foreign worker is exactly the same as that being paid to Canadian employees doing the same work in that region for the employer. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, let me say the government's focus is on helping Canadians find meaningful work. We are investing in Canadians so they can find better paying jobs today. However, there are parts of the country where employers cannot find the labour or skills they need to grow their businesses. And so, Mr. Speaker, I will not be supporting this motion today. The government is at it. Our hardworking Minister of Human Resources and Skills Development is on the file. We are bringing forward, we will be bringing forward changes to strengthen the program and make sure that this program works for the workers, for the employers, and for all Canadians. Thank you very much.
Questions
and comments. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, as former Minister of Immigration, I was very pleased to contribute to the program because I think in particular of farmers. I'm also thinking of what we call meat packers, particularly in Manitoba. And here I'm hearing a little bit of anything from the other side.
That situation. We don't want, like the NDP, to give the impression that we want to kill the program. We like the program. We invented it. But I have a serious question. Did he just said that all the temporary workers, foreign workers, will have to speak one of the two official languages? Because when you have those meat packers and when you have people from Mexico, and I remember that it's our government who signed an agreement with Guatemala, does it mean that if they don't speak English or French, they cannot work? They're coming here on a temporary frame of time. So I'd like to understand what he meant by that.
The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is important for workers who want to work in Canada to be able to effectively communicate in one of Canada's official languages in an appropriate level. And that level may not be the full English or French language skills that most Canadians would have, but it has to be in a certain level. I think where we're more concerned as a government is we have seen some practices which do need to be cleaned up, where it's been indicated that an individual must speak a third language in order, which is not one of Canada's official languages, in order to be hired to do a job. That practice will end.
Questions
and comments. The honourable member for Chambly-Bourgeois. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's interesting because they don't stop talking about the 8 letters sent by the NDP members, but he doesn't seem to understand the fact that it's not that we don't want temporary foreign workers. What we don't want is a situation like what we're seeing with pilots, Sunwing pilots in particular. I have some in my riding where they're losing their job during the so-called dead season, and then the other pilots are being hired from other countries at lower salary to save money and to give customers who want to travel south during the dead season a break. And then these companies get profits, but it's very dishonest, Mr. Speaker. And even if we want to see the program improved, the fact that they're saying that these people are getting the same salary is not true, Mr. Speaker. There's no other way of saying it, and I think that using letters written by MPs without taking into context why the letters were written, I think this is an egregious mistake. The member should apologize for using that argument and also explain to me the behavior of a company such as Sunwing, for example, which is laying off Canadians and then hiring people from abroad under the pretext that it's the dead season.
The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for his question, and he may be confusing programs. He may have examples that are outside of the issue we're dealing with today, which is temporary foreign workers. He may be talking about some other type of program. I'm not familiar with what he is referring to, but what we have committed to do, Mr. Speaker, and what we committed to do in Economic Action Plan 2013 is to take a real stronger, serious look at the temporary foreign worker program, make sure it's living up to its original intent of what it is designed to do and how it's designed to work, and make sure that there are not any loopholes or any other areas that would not ensure that both the workers and the employers were playing by the rules.
Questions and comments. A very short question. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to my colleague from Mississauga-Streetsville, it certainly is the case that in the British Columbia example of Chinese foreign workers who were brought in for the mine, they didn't speak English or French. But my question is related to agriculture. A farmer in my riding, and I asked him whether he was using the temporary foreign workers program, and he said, no, I hire all local kids. And I said, wow, I keep hearing that local kids won't work on farms. And he said, well, they will if you pay them a decent wage. I think that we've got an issue here about how we price the work that's being done, and I'd like to ask my friend from Mississauga-Streetsville if we shouldn't be willing to pay Canadian workers enough to live in Canada.
The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville. Short answer, please.
Well, I'd like to thank the member for Saanich Gulf Islands for that question and congratulate the farmer in her riding. I think that's spectacular. I've also met with employers in my riding, too, who are having difficulty under the temporary foreign worker program getting labour market opinions approved because they're not offering the appropriate wages in the area, and they're actually being denied because they're not offering the right wage levels that are commensurate with Canadian wages. And my answer to those employers are, you have to follow the rules. And if the rules are to pay a Canadian decent wage for a temporary foreign worker, just like you'd pay a Canadian worker, that's what the rules should be.
Resuming debate.